Welcome back, District 6. We have a great show ahead of us, and I'm excited. We have two guests today that are currently making a huge difference in our district, and I can't wait to introduce them both. But before we get started, I would like to remind the audience that we are all a product of our environment, and it is our responsibility as voters to maintain the highest level of thinking, and that thinking requires participation and responsibility. It is our time as the tech-savvy new generation, and we must understand our role in this next election. So please stay tuned, you're in for a great surprise, and remember, vote April 24th through May 2nd for early election and May 6th for the general election. We will be back here shortly, so don't go away. Hello and welcome back. I'm just going to hit the ground running on this one. You may know him from featured songs with Kevin Gates, Mo3, and Kylie, or you may know him as one of the best artists to ever come out of San Antonio. He is currently making an impact on the hip-hop culture today, and I can't wait to introduce San Antonio's own Chris P.
Hey, I'm trying to be the GOAT. The greatest of all time. The greatest of all time. The greatest of all time. They gon' call me the GOAT. The greatest of all time. The greatest of all time. Hey, they gon' call me the GOAT.
Oh man, hey, thank you for coming out today.
Yeah, man,
I really do appreciate you for making the show. I know that it's been kind of hard for you to schedule this in with me, especially with all the trips that you've been making. So I mean, bottom line is, how have you became so successful as far as the artist that you are today, and what's contributed to your success?
With me, man, it's really just staying true to myself, you know, keeping God first, having a great team around me, you know, and it just everything that I went through in life has just fueled me, and my music is based on real life music.
You and I both grew up in District 6, so growing up in District 6, sort of paint me a picture of what sort of created that, you know, criminal zone that we were so accustomed to today. I know that, you know, obviously lack of police is a factor, but what sort of factors do you think played a role in what created such a hostile environment, especially here in District 6?
Well, really, I think it's really when you think of District 6, it's not really a side of town that is known for violence, which is why it's not, because there's not been a microscope on it lately, but it definitely is going on. You know, District 6 is a place where you could be somewhere good in a good structured neighborhood, and you could go a half a mile down the road, and you could be in housing, and you could be in poverty areas, and so those things kind of mixed up, you know, and people just when people grow up fast, you know, when you're young, things are happening at a young age, and it's definitely things all around, violence and gang activities going on, and those are things that I've been involved growing up with, but no one's really spoke about, you know, so I'm glad, I think that's why I'm here. I'm glad that I'm here to, you know, shine a light on those things, and I feel like once it's brought to the light, that it'll be fixed. It'll continue to get better.
So why do you think that there's such a difference between the suburb areas and just maybe 5 minutes down the street and some of the meadows that we've seen? Why do you think there's such a difference in culture?
Because it's poverty and privilege. You know, in this area, you know, these people, they don't have everything. They don't have all the money, and you know, maybe they don't have enough money to pay the bills. So what we can do is we can create more opportunity. You know, I feel like if we create more opportunity, we give these kids something to do rather than, you know, saying to take them away from the reality. Because a lot of kids, they love going to school. When they come home, they hit reality. They hit the fact that they might not see the next meal or that they don't have, their parents don't have the money to keep the lights on, to keep food in the house. So I think if we create things for the youth as far as more programs, more athletic complexes, and just give kids something to do, I feel like they'll be more motivated to actually do right than actually, you know, be out there selling drugs or fighting or gang banging. And, you know, most kids that come from a poverty-stricken environment, they don't have both of their parents in the household. So when you don't have, I know growing up, you know, when you don't have a father figure in the household, you go looking for acceptance somewhere else. So that's why most people join gangs. You know, they got the OGs and the big homies. They create that father figure for them. So at the same time, you know, they're teaching them gang activity. You know, they're looking out for them, but it's still drugs going on. It's still violence going on in those things. So I feel like just creating more opportunity and keeping these kids busy, man. You know, education is big too. More after school programs and things like that. I feel like it'll really help the youth.
So speaking of violence and security, you know, with the new decriminalization policies that the current city council has been speaking about. There are several current members of the city council that are speaking and supporting decriminalization. How do you feel about that as far as the marijuana industry?
I feel like it's actually needed. You know, I feel like it's needed because when you think about the laws, a little over 2,000 people were arrested for 2 ounces of marijuana.
Yes, I saw
or
that.
less, and you know that's a lot of police work. That's a lot of money being spent on prosecuting these individuals for what's really petty crimes. You know, it's more things going on. I feel like that can be focused on. You know, last year San Antonio was actually #1 in the country on major countries of the increase in murders. We were 61% increase in murders from 2015 to 2016. We were actually ahead of Chicago, Illinois, which is the most dangerous city in America. We were ahead of them in the increase in murder. So it's getting worse. So now that it's on a national level and it's getting worse, I feel like that we got bigger things to focus on than marijuana. You know, no one there hasn't even really been any reported deaths of overdoses on marijuana. It's really not a dangerous drug. So I feel like the decriminalization is actually well needed.
So you think this would help cops prioritize certain cases that are going?
Correct.
So prioritization of what the cops are able to do, this is going to help them save time,
Correct.
energy, personnel on things
Correct.
that are actually, you know, homicides, burglary.
Correct, yeah, because you know, while the officer is sitting up and writing and booking somebody for an ounce of marijuana, it's a robbery happening down the street. It's a shooting happening down the street. It's, you know, it's rape going on. It's things of that. That's more, you know, it's sex offenders out here. It's more important things to be worried about than marijuana. Marijuana is actually a medicinal drug that's actually used to cure things. So you know, something that's being used to cure and is being used to cure here, but it's being prosecuted for criminal here, and it's people actually serving jail time for this. So I feel like that's actually well needed. I feel like it's going to help out, and it's going to put a more microscope on the bigger issues, which is our murder rate, which is our burglaries, which is our robberies, which is our rapes and homicides and things like that. So I feel like it's going to be good, man.
And I know this is a sensitive topic, and trust me, for the viewers back at home, I know that this is a very sensitive topic, but I feel as if we bring awareness to this topic, it allows us to better understand what we need to do in order to solve the problems that we have as far as safety and police activity. So I know that, you know, back to you being an artist, being in San Antonio, how has District 6 formed you into the person that you are today, and how has District 6 been able to allow you to have that creativity in your rhymes and rhythms whenever you're flowing? Because I know a lot of things that you speak about are real life, and not a lot of people speak about a real life situation. So that is why you've earned a lot of respect. In fact, I was talking to one of your fans at Ingram Park Mall the other day. He came up to me and told me, "Hey, do you know Chris P?" Because I was out there at Freestyle and getting one of your CDs, and they were telling me that he looks up to you and that you're oftentimes the voice of the streets.
Yeah, that's dope, man.
So how do you feel about being the modern voice of the streets and representing the suppression that you've been having to face?
I actually, that's really what I strive for. You know, when I came into this, I wanted to be that voice because I know when I was growing up, it wasn't a voice like that. And you know, that's actually good, man. Like I've heard that more than one time.
Really?
Actually.
You get that often, I bet.
Often, yeah, I actually do get that because not only do I speak about, you know, I speak about the streets and I speak about things that are going on, but I'm not saying that to go do this, or I'm not saying that it's okay. I'm actually giving pros and cons, consequences. You know, I'm actually making people aware. A lot of things people just glorify. Oh yeah, I'm selling drugs, I'm killing people, I'm shooting people. That stuff ain't cool, man. You know, those are things that, you know, I was a part of, and those are things that led me down a path that I didn't want to go to. You know, and so if I could save somebody young from going down that road that I did, then that's great, man. I'm happy being voice of the streets, man. You know, being the voice of the youth. So that's nice. Dope, man.
So I heard that you were going to be releasing a mixtape here soon. When are people going to be able to see that?
That's coming out April 14th, Friday.
Okay.
You can reach me at any social media outlet, on Instagram at official Chris P. You can reach me on Facebook at OGPeezy, Peezy. You can reach me on Instagram, Twitter, same thing,
Okay.
at official
So
Chris
all,
P.
all social media
All social media
avenues.
outlets, you know. And if you're actually in the San Antonio area, I'm gonna have it. I'm announcing multiple stores down the road that the CD is actually gonna be available on. And if you see me out, I'm gonna have hard copy CDs on me too. So
Nice,
we got
nice.
merchandise, things like that too. So it's gonna be great, man. You know, we're gonna do something real big.
So one last thing for the viewers, what would you say? Give them one last little bit of advice for what it is that you want to help promote here in District 6 as far as positive aspirations to get them out and make sure they chase their goals, much like you did. Not a lot of people have the heart to be able to chase and actually do what they set out to do. You know, you set those goals little by little and you take them step by step, but how were you able to do that? And one last word for the viewers before we...
One last word I would like to say, stay focused, follow your dreams, and stay consistent. Don't let nobody tell you what you can't do. Anything is possible if you put your mind to it. Don't worry about all the negativity. Don't worry about hate. All the greats were hated on at one point. Even Jesus was hated on. So don't worry about that, man. Go chase your dreams. Be what you want to be, you know. Create your own story.
Hey, well, thank you so much, Chris P.
Yes,
and
sir.
thank you for raising awareness with us on this sensitive topic.
Yes, sir.
I know
Thank
it's
you for
not
having
easy
me.
to talk about, but now more than ever, we're beginning to recognize the importance of having our voices heard. Don't forget that you can be a part of the change by voting in your local election. Coming up, we have a talk here with Drew Galloway, the Executive Director for Move SA. So stay tuned.
Hey San Antonio! The 2017 bond is a 5-year program that will provide numerous infrastructure improvements throughout San Antonio. This will improve our city streets, drainage, parks, and public safety facilities. As a resident, no matter where you live or work, you are close to one or more projects. 70% of the projects are dedicated to street and drainage improvements. Flooding will be reduced on more than 260 properties, and 200 miles of sidewalks are planned. The 2017 bond has projects in every district with no city property tax rate increase. Remember to vote on May 6th.
Welcome back. With the local elections coming up, I thought I'd invite Drew Galloway, the Executive Director from Move SA, to talk about the initiatives and the importance of voting. So first of all, I want to say thank you for making the show.
Thank you for having
and
me.
thank
I
you for
appreciate
everything
it.
that you do in
Yes,
San
sir.
Antonio
Thank you.
as
Yes, sir.
well. I know that it's not easy to take that first step. So really, what made you take that first step in joining Move, and how did you get a part of that?
Sure, absolutely. So thanks for having me.
Okay.
You know, it's a pleasure to be here to talk about the local elections because it's so important what's about to happen beginning in just a couple weeks. So Move San Antonio is a grassroots, nonpartisan, nonprofit organization, and we build political power in underrepresented youth communities. And we do that really through 3 ways: through civic engagement, leadership development, and progressive issue advocacy.
Okay.
And so ultimately, we want young people to be involved in this process, whether that's from registering to vote, to learning about voting, to actually voting, to, like yourself, running for office.
Hey man, that's what I'm trying to do.
And so it's just, you know, that's what we're all about, is we're just here to tell young people to go out, change your community, get out there, vote, you can do this.
And that's great, and obviously I'm on your side, of course. But why do you think that young voters in general vote typically for the national elections rather than the city and local elections? What do you think creates that apathy?
I don't think it's apathy at all, actually. I think that there's a couple things that we found out contribute to that. One of it is awareness and education. So
Of course.
so young people you see the election coming up, you hear about it, that kind of thing, but you don't really see and hear about as much about the mayor election.
No, not at all.
And it's also in May versus November, so it's at a different time. So teaching young people that this election is happening and local government can affect your life closer than any other type of government. As soon as they hear that, they get it. They they know to get out and vote once they hear that. Also, one of the things that we're trying to talk more about and hopefully help correct here in San Antonio is that there's not as much media coverage about the local election than there was in the national election. So if you think about your Facebook feed in November of last year, it was blowing up with like lots of stuff from all different national organizations, that kind of thing. Right now, not so much. No. And so, yeah, exactly. You know, like San Antonio Express News is doing a good job covering, Rivard Report, La Prensa. There's some local newspapers and stuff, but if you look at the way that young people consume media is predominantly online, Snapchat, Facebook, Twitter. You know, we want to get our news that way. And so if nobody on those channels are talking about the local election, then we're not going to know about it. And so we're doing constant work to try to figure out ways to get local election information on those platforms.
Man, that sounds like a process. So obviously it's a whole process. And what are some of the things that you're experiencing through this whole process? I mean, I'm pretty interested. I mean, you know, you're dealing with young people who really don't quite understand what's going on. A funny story, I tell them that I'm running for city council and they tell me, well, I already voted in the presidential election, and they don't quite understand or grasp that it's a local election as well too. So what are some of the experiences that you're typically going through and having to face?
Yeah, Eric, I mean, I think that is something that we see every single day, and it's not because young people don't want to be part of this process, they just don't know about it. And so like getting out there,
it's just that simple.
Yeah, it's just getting out there and telling them why their vote matters, and then helping them through the voting process, whether that's registration or whether that's education, and teaching them what issues that they're going to be voting on, because they're going to vote on an $850 million bond proposition.
Of course, historic bond.
Exactly.
Historic.
And so, you know, teaching them what each proposition is about and why it's important to neighborhoods on the south side and the west side and the east side and the north side, and ultimately getting them you know, educated and ready to go cast that vote, and then mobilizing them to do that.
I gotta ask you, at what age do you think someone should be ready to vote?
I believe that San Antonio should be the first suffrage, or the largest suffrage for 16 city in the United States. We've got cities in Maryland, we've got some cities in California that are experimenting and already actively allowing 16 and 17-year-olds to vote in local elections. And if we could do that here in San Antonio, we could train young people to go through the voting process while they're still in high school, so that by the time they turn 18 and the presidential election comes up, they already know what to do.
So when you say through high school, you're mentioning something sort of like a civil class.
Yeah, I think 100%. We, a couple generations ago, we taught civics in high school. So civics is different than government.
Okay.
So government is like the three branches and what happens and all the laws and that kind of stuff. Civics is the practical aspect of that. So like, what do you have to do as a citizen to participate in government? And we don't teach civics in high school anymore, or if we do, we teach it very poorly.
Yeah.
And so we've got to do a much better job of that, because like, if there is something happening in your neighborhood and you don't like it, do you realize that it's much easier for you to speak out against that issue? Let's say somebody's building a big high-rise complex in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
You can speak out against that at zoning commission downtown and be one of 10 people in the room, 20 people in the room,
Right.
versus like when you go to city council 2 months later, you're one of 100 or 200 people in the room.
Yeah.
And so your voice is much stronger. So knowing things like that of how to impact government through civics, and one of those ways is voting, is so important. And we're doing a lot of that teaching and education on college campuses across San Antonio.
Great, great. I mean, you sound, very enthusiastic, and it's actually a breath of fresh air, but where did you learn about your voting power? Who sort of showed you? Was it yourself that you taught, or who kind of showed you that, hey, my vote matters? I actually can make a change here. My grandfather was a county commissioner in Georgia, and so I actually grew up sort of going to the courthouse with him, and first-hand experience. Yeah, huh? and learning, I saw him run for office. I saw him, get reelected. I saw the things that he did in our community. But I also believe that even if you don't grow up in a family that does vote and that kind of thing, you can learn that through civic education classes, or you can learn that through just a community on a college campus or in a high school. You can learn. So
voting is a habit. If you do it, if you can get somebody to vote 3 times in a row,
Okay.
the next 3 times they're 60% more likely to do it on their own without you having to like prompt them at all. So voting 100% is a habit. So if we can just teach young people how to vote, how to get through the process, where to go, how to register, how to stay registered, that kind of stuff, then it's easy. We just need to get them to vote municipal, state, federal, and then they're back in the game for themselves. And we don't
Hey,
have to-
it sounds easy, but sometimes it sounds like rocket science when I'm speaking to some of the constituents in the area. So the viewers back at home, how can some of the voters get involved with your movement, with Move SA?
Yeah, absolutely. They can go to Move San Antonio, sanantonioallspelledout.org.
Okay.
That's our website. Check out what we do there. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat at Move San Antonio, all spelled out.
Okay.
And just watch what we do. We've got tons of volunteer opportunities. We're constantly out in the field registering voters. In 2016, our team registered 8,568 voters right here in Bexar County.
8,000.
8,000. Over 8,000. And, last week we registered our 1,000th voter right here in Bexar County since mid-January. So we're registering a ton of people, but then also that next step is like engaging them and telling them why their vote matters and why they need to get out. And so if you want to come volunteer with us, do it. Students out there, we have internships that are available. We have fellowships. Fellowships are like sort of our junior organizers all across the city. And it's a great opportunity to learn community organizing from a grassroots organization that's nonpartisan and just cares about democracy and making voting more accessible, more fair, and more equitable right here in Bexar County.
Great. I mean, you're doing all this just in Bexar County alone. And it's funny because in my district, it's funny how you say 8,000 by yourself as an organization, because we only had a little more than 5,000 votes in District 6 last election. So you're almost accounting for a district and a half when you're talking about your impact on the city. So have you thought about your impact on the city and what you think about long term? This is short term right now, and you've had tremendous success, but what about that long term? What are you seeing here as far as a snowball effect? I mean,
100%, Eric. Our voter turnout rate in the 2015 municipal election was 12.6%.
Okay.
And of that 12.6%, 3.5% were people under the age of 35. So only a small handful of people under the age of 35 actually participated in the 2015 municipal election. We have to change that, because if young people take our democracy and our government by the reins and actually get out and vote, we're going to have politicians like you who talk about public transportation and the decriminalization of marijuana, and and how we can make our streets safer and sidewalks better and our waterways more efficient. We're going to have those issues that are important to young people. You're going to have to talk about those because we'll be the voting base. Right now, the current age of a municipal voter, and the average age of a municipal voter in 2015 is 63 years old.
63.
That's the average age. The average age of a citizen in San Antonio is 34.
Okay.
So we have to do a better job of getting young people to the polls and having them talk about issues that are important to them.
So not only is there a difference in voting, but there's actually a difference in age range from the general national election and the local city election.
100%.
So even though that's only it's a 10-year difference, how can we continue to drive that age down, and what are the little things that you're doing right now that are different than any other organization?
We make voting fun.
Okay.
And so, I don't know if you've seen us on college campuses, but we have, people who dress up in banana suits and robot costumes. And, we make this, we take away this enigma of voting that,
The fear of
this is
just
like some fancy process and that kind of thing. It's like, no, all you do is you show up at this place and you go cast your ballot about issues and for people that you care about. And once young people do that a couple times, things, that whole fear goes away.
Okay.
And so, so we just help them through that initial process and help them get registered and that kind of stuff. And so not only are we doing a lot of that actual registration and education and mobilization, we're training the next generation of community organizers all across San Antonio, and then we're talking to young people and listening to them about like what issues matter to them. Like public transportation is the #1 local issue for young people. And so,
have you used the Via Bus lately?
yeah, exactly.
I mean,
It takes 4 hours on the Via Bus to go all the way across town.
it's ridiculous.
Well, should we have light rail? That's a decision for politicians like you, but you have to go out and listen to the constituents. And so, if we have young people coming to you and talking to you about things that matter, like light rail or like a more efficient Via Bus, or more budget for the Via Bus, for Via Buses, then ultimately you as a politician or a future politician will be able to enact that. And so that's what we want to do. We want to make sure that young people have a voice in the game.
Man, it seems like you do amazing things. I can't say enough about you and your organization.
Thank you, sir.
I want to say thank you once again for coming out to my show, and it's been great talking with you right now and understanding the better ways of getting young people involved. But before we close out, I want to say a few things. The purpose of this show is to raise awareness to the local voters in San Antonio. I know that some of these topics are hard to talk about, but it would be my duty as your city council representative to properly understand each topic and issue at hand. Once again, I encourage you and everyone to get out in the community and get active, get off that TV, that game system, and be a part of something bigger than yourself, you or I or any specific individual. We have a historic bond up, and I think that we should have a historic voter turnout as well. Safety, infrastructure, voter participation, all these are topics that we need to address, and I feel as if though I am the best candidate here for District 6, and I want to thank that my two guests here that gave us some great insight with safety and what happened about growing up being a product of our environment, and how to make young people have the voice that we deserve and we require for us to have a successful city moving forward.